we would not be having to worry about all this grief and despair and all these troubles that has basically multiplied like I've never seen anything multiply before, if things would have been handled properly in the past. Now, I can't tell these people how to do their job, but what I can tell them is that in today's society, they need to use every means possible. They need to cross all their T's and dot all their I's, and they need to make sure that they've made sure that they're protecting this human body, because we are basically, all of us, especially if you're a born-again Christian, we are, according to the Bible, are as lambs in the midst of sheep. And unless you wake up and go to bed every night, keeping that in your mind, in understanding that even though people may be approaching you in a good way, don't give them the benefit of the doubt that they're actually up to good, but actually automatically assume that this person is using some sort of trick, some sort of entrapment, some sort of way of harming and hurting you. And even then, with you being consciously, subconsciously thoughtful of these things, you still are liable to wind up falling into the devil's entrapment. I'm telling you, I'm 63 years old. I've never seen the wicked powers so active and so powerful today in my whole lifespan. And the reason why is because, just like the Bible talks about, that they'll come down in great wrath in the last days because they know their time is short. Jesus is talking there in the first 3 chapters of Revelations. See thou that you not get pulled into these things. Those who have not known the depths of Satan, hold fast till I come. I used to think that the depths of Satan was strictly breaking the commandments of God. Not no more. The depths of Satan can be from A to Z, from running water to electricity to the modern day modernization of humanity towards weakening the flesh. And if Satan can weaken the flesh, he automatically thinks that he can weaken the spirit. And that's what he's after. He's not after our flesh. He's after our soul. Thing about our souls don't belong to us to begin with. God gave us that soul. And it's up to us in how we cultivate that soul pertaining to our temples, our body. And whenever we start abusing our body, we're basically abusing the soul. Because everything is wrapped around pertaining to our lives of determination of whether or not we're considered worthy or not worthy of what we do and what we don't do. And your temple is part of that gauging point that God uses of saying either well done, thy good and faithful servant, or depart from me, for I've never known thee. People need to realize that. And these ministers and these preachers out here, they need to start teaching that on a spirituality platform regarding all this.
Immediately. And just to close, Jose.
No, please, go ahead.
Just to close, I drummed into my people and all these crisis things we dealt with, bombing, snipers, killers. We set up these joint operation centers with the police, and I drummed into everybody all the time. Info, flow, and go. You get information, you flow information, 360, and then you do your task. And when I read this report, I saw that failure everywhere. The sniper gets information, he doesn't flow it anywhere. He sees cops run into the roof of the barn, but he doesn't flow the information. He fails. You got to info, flow, and then you go. And that's repeatedly happening in that instance. And you got to inculcate your people with that mindset at every level. The commanders to the special agents has to know that. They have to fix their structural leadership. You have to have the special agent in charge. If you're not going to be in charge, then you don't get the title in charge. You have to do something else then.
Yeah, but and one thing, of course, are the massive series of communication failures that you talk about. But then there's the issue, and just thinking of what Ken was telling us about the fact that there was only one drone accessible to the officials there, and then this person was on the phone for tech support for hours trying to get the drone to work. I mean, this is kind of stuff. In a way, you're like, this is what we all go through on a daily basis. Anytime you want to reach tech support, you're going to be on hours. But that the Secret Service would have that problem when it's the security of the former president of the United States.
And you're exactly right. And the biggest thing, Ken and I talked about this the other day, and here's the biggest thing that the senators left out of the report, but we should all understand. Crooks in Butler broke the aura of impenetrable security around a Secret Service protectee. He broke the aura. And that's why we got the shooter in West Palm, because he saw, these guys aren't impenetrable. I can do this. I can get through this. Well, the problem is other people are seeing that too. Around the country, disaffected people, political terrorists, foreign nations, Iran. They're seeing this weakness.
And they basically turn it into a sport because of their evil, demonic mindset. It's kind of like, well, if you didn't get the 10-point buck, that way you can hang him on the wall for a trophy. Maybe I can. You have a bunch of demented, possessed people on the planet that are so full of evil, they're the devil walking in disguise. And these are the things that even Jesus talked about, that in the last days that they would come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they would be raging wolves inside. This is the reason why that I point my finger as hard as I do of the people that could have been engaged in the Windmill Ministries missions going all the way back to its beginning phases in 1989 and was not. They was not. And there's no way that they can deny this because I've got proof of it. Again and again and again.
And when they see this weakness, they think they can exploit it. And that's a bad thing for the country and the service. So there's the greatest threat, I think, is coming from drone attacks. They're ubiquitous in the Ukraine war with explosives and firearms. And I know the service is trying to prepare for that, but I'm telling you, that's a great fear. But they've got to back those perimeters up and bring in all the agents and officers you need to do it. I don't care if you've got to bring in 30 border patrolmen to secure the golf course at Mar-a-Lago. Guess what? Trump's going to play golf there next time he's down there, so get ready. And you need to secure it because we got 4 months until the inauguration. It's a critical time for America.
I'm going to go a step further than what they even think. I explained a while ago to one of my carekeepers working for Home Aid about what went on in Southern Illinois pertaining to a pharmacist that was basically taking half of the people's injections that the doctor had prescribed for them pertaining going through cancer chemo and putting it off to the side and putting it in another vial. That way, once the vial got full, he could turn the vial in and get money for it. Well, they didn't know he was doing this. He was really slick and sly about doing it. He didn't let nobody catch him in the presence of the pharmaceutical office, but they got to noticing so many people that was dying. I mean, they were dying by the groves in that particular area. But they got to investigating what was going on, and then they got to looking in other areas pertaining to financial records, and they found out that this guy had a lot of money in the bank. And even though he made some good money being a pharmacist, he shouldn't have made that kind of money, and that's what pegged him. That's what pegged him, was that he was doing that. Today, in today's society, we got a bunch of mad scientists. I'm going to use that word. People that has went to school for chemistry, whatever, that can not only make explosives, but can basically make chemicals, biological chemicals. I mean, they claim that if you know what you're doing, and if you mix certain chemicals together, that you basically have enough chemicals underneath your sink to mix together to basically cause your whole house to be bombed if you know what you're doing. Well, in today's society, with people being so evil-minded, what if somebody was to take some sort of chemical, biological, whatever, Ancient Orange, some of the compounds that COVID was made out of, and knowing that a certain person was going to be there at a certain particular time, and them deliberately, basically making it airborne. That way, it would contaminate the whole bunch. It would contaminate not only the candidate, but it would contaminate Homeland Security and everybody that was in that whole body of people. I think they need to have some sort of air devices set up. Maybe even pigeons, I don't know. Doves, whatever. That if an agency was going through the air like that, and the first thing that I thought of as I was talking, pertaining to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, it was the Army that put on a fake show that there was something airborne in the air that was basically going around putting masks on and making people wear masks to evacuate that whole area. Well, don't think for a second that can't actually occur, because it can. That can actually occur. Now, I don't know who has the credentials of being able to make stuff like that. I know that I don't, and I know that I never want to know how to make stuff like that, because it ain't for a good thing. It's for a bad thing. It's for evil. But I'm just saying that every time they set up a meeting like that, there should be some sort of breathing devices around these candidates, and maybe even birds, I don't know, in a cage, that if you see the bird all of a sudden drop dead, hey, something's going on. We may want to figure out, could be poison in the air. And you may think, well, you're over dramatizing this, Dennis. You're really taking this a step further than what most people ever think about. You keep in mind that I know my enemy. I know he's out to kill, steal, and destroy. I know he's the author of confusion. And I know he's not lightening up whenever it comes to trying to bring this country down to its knees. And basically, we have been infiltrated from the inside out, and that's what has caused these problems to now resonate or surface to the top, that now a great deal of people can see, those that want to see, that are thinking to themselves, my God, how in the world did it ever get this bad? Well, I'm telling you right now how it got that bad. It got that bad because of a movement that happened that was a resistance movement that wanted to shove me off into a corner, and I was to only be seen and not heard. In the meantime, Satan and his demons, the prince of this world, Lucifer, the Luciferian Lucifer, made heyday with everybody else. And now he's flipped it, and now he's actually attacking the Homo sapiens on the planet, and he's trying to stir up things all over the world in the response towards bringing harm and hurt and destruction to humanity. I can see it just as well as I can see my nose on my own face. And if other people can't see that pertaining to the adversary, then you're misjudging your adversary. Because I guarantee you, if he had the opportunity, just like the Bible talks about, that he would sift us as wheat, that's exactly what he would do. He would sift us as wheat if he could. Now, just because he can't, don't mean that he ain't going to take in cheap shots. He ain't going to bruise you. He ain't going to bloody your lip or bloody your nose. Because God did not call us into a playground, but rather a war ground. And this war is pertaining to good and evil. God's called us into a field. And this field that I'm talking about isn't a playground field, but it's actually a mission field. And we're all supposed to be acting according to what I'm talking about as far as seeing our adversary, this true spiritual adversary that is out to kill, steal, and destroy, that can enter into any human being to always be cautious and concerned about this. Now, at the same time, just because you're cautious and concerned about this doesn't mean that you're supposed to take your head and put it in the sand like an ostrich or go live in a cave somewhere. You still have to function. You still have to breathe. You still have to do according to the way that the Lord wants you to do. And whenever it comes to leaving the door open towards leading people to Christ, that's our jobs. Especially if the person that you're dealing with is in fact sincere. Lead them to the Lord. Lead them to the state of repentance. And as you gain one, you'll gain two. As you gain two, you'll gain four. As you gain four, you'll gain 8. It'll multiply. For the labors be few, is what the Bible says. The labors be few. Please, please turn into a godly, spiritually anointed Jesus Christ Savior labor. But at the same time, as you're being a laborer, also be a defender. As you're being a defender, also be a alerter. That way you can alert people around you and tell them what to expect. You can give out advisories. You can give out warnings. You can tell people, hey, these are the things that you should expect to encounter because our adversary is still out to steal, kill, and destroy. Homeland Security come awful close to not only a rumble with their agency, but come awful close to basically seeing multiple rioting and possibly even tanks and everything else inundating our country over here pertaining to martial law if that man was to have gotten assassinated during this bullet. Thank God that he wasn't. Pray for him, pray for all the other candidates, and pray that God's will be done.
And you know, those drone attacks that you refer to in Ukraine used by the Russians are made in Iran. Let's not forget that. Ryan Nobles,
Exactly.
Ken Delaney, Jim Kavanaugh, thank you all so very much. Up next, Hezbollah fires a missile deep into Israel as tensions mount in the region, while Israel is now saying it is preparing for a potential ground invasion. We're back in 90 seconds.
Well, they're definitely they're definitely taking advantage of the word that went out, I guess 7-8 years ago, pertaining to the last days, the end time messages. People are really taking advantage of this, and they're doing it on a demonic, cruel, insensitive way. Now, I realize the leader of Israel has every right in the world to protect itself. But to see things escalating the way that they're escalating, to me, this is just my opinion, everybody's got a right to one of them, rather than them being a solution to the problem, they actually are evolving towards being the problem. Now, once more, Israel, Jerusalem, they have a right to protect themselves. Don't get me wrong, they do. And I realize that they've had enemies, I guess ever since the beginning of time, towards wanting to kill them and take them out. And I realize Ronald Reagan preached a message of strength through peace. But this is not a peaceful way of going about doing things whenever you go to attacking everybody and their brother around you other than Hamas. It was bad enough looking at the destruction with Hamas. Do you realize if this turns into an all out and out regional war over there, how much endless pain and suffering that we're going to have to observe on TV and see? You think that we've seen bad things, in which we have on TV, pertaining to everything else going on, especially over there in Ukraine and stuff? We ain't seen nothing yet. We haven't seen nothing yet. If this continues on the trajectory that it's on right now, we are going to see things unimaginable to the human eye, much less the human heart. Please remember that. Please pray for these situations.
Professional, highly skilled, and battle-experienced force. He said you're coming in much stronger and far more experienced than they are. You will go in, destroy the enemy there, and decisively destroy their infrastructure. Well, the Israelis have spent the past week destroying Hezbollah infrastructure and killing and maiming Hezbollah fighters. We've seen the death toll spike. And of course, last week we saw that very unusual and unprecedented incident where there looked like thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies that blew up across Lebanon, especially in Hezbollah strongholds in the south of the country, the Bekaa Valley in the east, and the southern neighborhood of Dahia here in Beirut. So here in Beirut, as you asked, Jose, the situation hasn't quite reached the level that it has in the south. We've been hearing bombardments for the past several days, increasingly, frequent. They've been quite loud, and I've been here with some regularity for much of the past year.
I want to back up just for a second. Seeing that scene right there, where that
in Beirut.
stop right there, up right there. You see that little girl right there? You see that little girl? She just got through witnessing that. She just got through seeing that. God only knows how many other people around there that have witnessed it. There may be 2 kids there. I don't know. Maybe two children there. It's kind of hard to identify. But my point being,